Voices Against Violence, a Harmony House podcast to educate, empower, and serve as a voice for survivors. We aim to shed light on crucial issues surrounding domestic violence, offer support, and inspire action for change. Join us as we work together to create a community where all individuals can live a life free of abuse.
Hi, welcome to Voices Against Violence. My name is Kirstyn Walker. I am the Assistant Executive Director at Harmony House.
I'm Charity, and I am the Prevention Program Manager here at Harmony House. Welcome to Voices Against Violence. January is Stalking Awareness Month, and so the rest of the episodes this month, we will be talking about that. I feel like when it comes to interpersonal violence, that is one element of that we don't talk about nearly enough.
So we're hoping today to talk through the definition of stalking, what it looks like, and also just to debunk some myths that surround stalking. Because like you said, Charity, we probably don't give it enough attention, and it's a really serious and dangerous crime.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also just, in my own opinion, is that it's the one that is so often mischaracterized. In our media and popular culture. So let's talk about it. So let's start by defining what stalking is. So the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence defines stalking as one person's obsessive behavior directed toward another person that causes the victim to fear for their safety. So similar to domestic violence or sexual violence, it's not behavior directed at everyone. It is targeting one individual. According to U.S. Justice Department study, the U.S. Justice Department says that stalking refers to harassing or threatening behavior that an individual engages in repeatedly, such as following a person, appearing at a person's home or place of business, making harassing phone calls, vandalizing property. And so individually, these may not seem like a huge thing to someone who's not experiencing this, but together, all of those incidents and behaviors cause someone to fear for their safety. Mm-hmm. And so that is stalking. Stalking is a crime in all 50 states. It differs on how states prosecute it, but it is a crime. Right. And here in Missouri, it takes 2 instances of a stalking occurrence to be considered a crime.
And I think what you said too about considering all of the different behaviors, and what I've seen about all of the resources and the prevention education that I've read, it really emphasizes the importance of context. That out of context, it might not seem as threatening or as scary, but in context, all of these behaviors add up to something really scary and dangerous and really serious that we should be taking seriously. And the prevalence of it. So according to SPARC, which is the Stalking Prevention Awareness and Resource Center, stalking affects nearly 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men at some point in their lifetime.
So this is happening to everyone. Similar to domestic violence, the age group most at risk to experience stalking is 18 to 24. And I think you just said this, the group that's going to experience this more often than not are women. Men are more often the perpetrators. So it happens. I think it's something that doesn't get talked about, partly because you might have a string of things and it's hard to convey to someone else. Well, yes. I saw this person there, this happened, to help them understand what a serious and threatening situation that is.
Right. Which is why, again, one of the prevention tips or one of the tips that folks talk about if you're experiencing stalking is to keep a log and a record so that you have those things that you can start to be able to build the context of this is why it's so dangerous or upsetting when this person shows up or when they do this. It's because there's a pattern of behaviors of them doing that.
I think before we go on, I always like to point this out when we're talking about this. We so often in our culture talk about crime and victims of crime as though like there's this boogeyman out there who, you have to be aware of. But just as we've said with domestic and sexual violence, you are most likely to experience stalking from someone that you know. You're most at risk for it after you have left the relationship. And so stalkers are most often, exes or friends or family. Like they're people that you know. So this isn't a stranger in a trench coat or somewhere,
And I think that's the first myth that we can kind of debunk today is, folks talk about stalking or maybe think about stalking as if it is strangers, as if it is, sometimes how it's portrayed in the media of a stranger, but it's oftentimes people we know, which makes it even that much more complicated when you're trying to record instances or really spell out that pattern of behavior, because these are people who very likely have access to you throughout other areas of your life.
Safehome.org is an organization that has a lot of information about personal safety. And so they have a lot of resources and info here on stalking. And they have a graphic, the relationship of those being stalked, 26%. It was an ex, 25% significant other, 22% a friend, 13% a family member, but a neighbor, a friend, coworkers. So like these are all people that you know, which is not to minimize that sometimes it can be a stranger.
Sure.
I've had a couple of minor instances of this myself, and in those cases, those were strangers.
Wow.
But this is, coming from people that you might be or have been in relationship with.
Yeah. It's an important distinction that it can be both, because I think that because the danger is if we're only thinking about strangers, then we're not considering that this could be behaviors that we see from other people in our lives.
I think another good thing to point out here, so SPARC, they have kind of broken down stalking into kind of four major categories, four major types of behavior that make up stalking. And so one of them is surveillance. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, if you say stalking, someone might just thinking, okay, someone's just following me, but it can take various forms. So one of them is surveillance. So that could be someone following you. It might also be someone going through your mail or your trash. It might be someone planting a camera or a GPS tracker, so they can monitor your location. Life invasion. So this is the offender showing up in a victim's life without the victim's consent. And so it might be them repeatedly contacting you. It might be them trying to initiate contact through third parties. So sending you messages through mutual friends, sending you gifts or objects that you don't want. One example that I heard was someone had called, not here in this area, but someone got to their car and there were some flowers and a note, and they called 911 and they were like, someone left you flowers. But on the note was like a nickname, and the only person who called them that nickname was their ex, who they had fled thinking they were safe. But so finding that let them know that this person now knows where I am again.
Right.
So it's that kind of thing. Impersonating you online, hacking into your accounts, intimidation. So behaviors within the totality of stalking. So this is all part of the bigger picture, but threatening you either explicitly or implicitly, in person or online, blackmailing you, threatening to harm themselves, and really any kind of behavior that is intimidating, frightening, or alarming. And then interference is the last category here. So this is a stalker interfering in a victim's life. So it might be damaging your property or stealing property. It might be disrupting your professional life, might sabotaging things at work, showing up at your workplace, causing problems, maybe causing you to have a car accident or something, So actually interfering with how you are living and moving through the world, through your day. So those are kind of the tools that stalkers
The different
use.
strategies.
Yeah,
that
the
they'll
different
use.
strategies.
Sure. So, Charity, you've laid a great groundwork for us around the definition of stalking and the different strategies that someone might use when stalking someone. Let's keep thinking about the ways that we can clarify this and maybe think through some things that are myths. So I think that one myth is that stalking is a romantic way to gain someone's attention. I think that that is a storyline that I have watched on TV before. Like, I've seen that story be told.
I mean, I feel like that is the storyline in almost every rom-com. I feel like that's the storyline in a lot of those movies where it's like the girl goes back to her hometown and now this person is going to follow her. TV shows, like, it's so often the storyline. And no, that's not romantic.
No, the reality is that stalking is really serious and really dangerous. I've got some statistics here. Stalking increases the risk of intimate partner homicide by 3 times. So if somebody's experiencing stalking, that should really indicate to service professionals that there is a high risk of lethality here. I've got another one. Abusive partners who stalk are more likely than abusive partners who do not stalk to verbally degrade, threaten, use a weapon to attack, sexually assault, and or physically injure their victims. So this is not a cute romantic storyline. This is a really dangerous and serious crime. And like you said, a crime in all 50 states.
And it's a huge red flag. We've talked about before the statistic of women who are killed by current or former partners, and often in those cases, stalking was part of what that victim was experiencing a year prior to that event. So it is really one of the things that law enforcement and service providers look at, because it lets them know that the risk of harm or lethality for this victim is now exponentially increased because stalking is evident.
Yeah. Another myth, maybe a well-intentioned friend might say, just ignore it, right? Or it'll go away. Unfortunately, not the case. Stalkers are persistent and the behavior will likely continue, if not escalate. So getting help, getting intervention is really, really critical. So that's safety planning, reaching out to service providers, reaching out to law enforcement. Getting help is really going to be necessary.
I think that's such a good point, because so often people around us that maybe don't understand the severity of this. I had someone tell me once when I was on the receiving end of some unwanted behavior that was going on for a little bit. Like, I mean, what? That's kind of romantic. Like, they are just like. So I think there's this idea that we diminish it and we try to handle it ourselves. And it can be scary to acknowledge that, like, oh, this is a problem bigger than me. This isn't something I can handle alone. But I think it's important to realize if stalking is present, you are in danger. Or if someone, you've got a friend or family member who is telling you they're experiencing this, they're in danger. And so you need to be calling your local authorities and getting help, reaching out to Harmony House or the Victim Center or a similar organization in your community so that they can help you safety plan around this. But you have to take it seriously.
Right. Yeah. Safety planning is going to be key. Along with documenting, keeping records. And if you don't know where to start, that's okay. Advocates do. So reaching out to those service providers like Charity was saying, and either at, if you're local, Harmony House, Victim Center, FJC, or through national helplines, so that you can talk to an advocate who can help you navigate this.
Well, Kirstyn, thanks for sharing those myths. I think, awareness is always like step one. And so I hope if you're listening, you will continue to follow us throughout the month as we continue to talk about this issue and delve a little deeper. Before we go, I do want to share just a few resources beyond Harmony House. There are some national resources. So the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence which they have a hotline number. You can live chat, you can text. Their website is thehotline.org. And there you can find more information about this, help with safety planning. So that's a great resource to keep in mind. And Kirstyn, you referenced SPARC.
Yeah. So if you are a service provider, so something to keep in mind is that SPARC does not offer service or guidance directly to victims or survivors of stalking, but they are there to help the helper. So if you are a victim service provider, or if you know somebody who's experiencing stalking, or if you're in law enforcement, any of those organizations or agencies that might be working with folks who are experiencing stalking, SPARC has some wonderful resources. They've got trainings, they have infographics, brochures, handouts, and their website is stalkingawareness.org. And we are happy to link them as well in our resources on this episode. We're going to continue to have conversations about stalking as the month progresses through January. So please join us again next week for another conversation as we really dive into what some survivors have to say about stalking. We're going to have watched a training on survivors speak about stalking.
All individuals have a right to a life free of abuse. If you or someone you know needs help, please call our 24-hour hotline, 417-864-SAFE, 417-864-7233, or chat 24/7 with an advocate on our website at myharmonyhouse.org. Visit our website or follow us on our socials to stay up on the latest news and events. This is Voices Against Violence. Thanks for listening.